The phone rang while I was folding laundry. It sounds normal, almost boring. That is what scares me now. The biggest moments in life do not always arrive with music or warnings. Sometimes they arrive while you're matching socks, standing in a small bedroom in a rented house you never managed to buy. I was in our room, leaning over the bed, sorting piles. My socks were simple, usually the same colors. Sarah's socks were always missing one from the pair, like they walked away on their own. I was holding one navy sock with a tiny hole near the toe when my phone buzzed against the dresser. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Unknown numbers usually meant spam, surveys, or someone trying to sell me a warranty I did not need. But something in me said answer it anyway. I picked up. A woman's voice came through, calm and professional. She spoke like someone who had made this call many times. She said her name was Margaret Shun, and she worked at Whitmore and Associates. She said she was calling about the estate of my uncle, Richard Harrison. Uncle Richard. I had not seen him in years. He was my father's brother, the one who moved to Singapore in the 1980s and never really returned. He would send a Christmas card sometimes. Once in a while I got a birthday call, usually late, like he remembered after someone reminded him. Then he died. I did not even learn about it from a close relative. I saw it through a distant cousin's social media post. I did not go to the funeral. The truth was simple and ugly. I could not afford the flight. Margaret said she was sorry for my loss. Her voice sounded practiced, not fake, just used to the job. Then she said something that made my brain stop. She said I was the primary beneficiary in my uncle's will. The sock slipped out of my hand and fell onto the carpet. I remember staring at it like it was proof I was still standing in my room, still in my life, not suddenly transported into a dream. I asked what she meant. She explained the estate had gone through probate. After taxes and different payments, my inheritance would be about $4.8 million. $4.8 million. The number did not fit inside my head. It was too big, like try to carry an entire house in your pocket. I heard the words, but they felt like a foreign language. I sat on the edge of the bed because my legs suddenly felt weak. Margaret asked if I was still there. I told her yes, I was there. She kept talking, walking me through steps. Paperwork, accounts, documents, meetings, lawyers, dates and times. Her voice became a soft background sound, like a fan running in another room. All I could think was one sentence. We are saved. For years, it felt like we had been drowning. We did not sink, but we never reached shore either. We just kept moving our arms, getting tired, panicking quietly, pretending we were fine. Now we could breathe. I thought about Sarah's credit cards. She had 6 of them. Together the debt was around $47,000. Every month there was a minimum payment, then interest, then a new purchase, then guilt, then stress. I had believed the story that the debt came from emergencies and bad luck. I thought about her parents' mortgage. Sarah always said they still owed around $180,000 on their house. She said the payment was heavy, and they were struggling, and she was trying to help. Every month, she told me she sent them money. Every month, I believed her. I thought about my student loans. I had deferred them, consolidated them, moved them around like I was juggling knives. Every time I thought I had a plan, the numbers would change. With $4.8 million, all of it could be wiped out. Not some of it. All of it. I could give Sarah the life I promised her when we got married at 23. Back then, we were young and confident and stupid in the way young people can be. We thought love was enough to beat math. We married in a tiny church where the air conditioning barely worked. We sweated through the ceremony and laughed about it later, convinced we would survive anything. Now I believed I finally had the tool to fix everything. Money, relief, space to live. Margaret asked when I could come into the office to finalize documents. We picked Wednesday. After the call ended, I sat on the bed for a long time. I did not know if it was 5 minutes or 50. The laundry basket sat near my feet, half empty. My clothes mixed with Sarah's clothes, twisted together like our lives. For richer, for poorer. We had done a lot of poorer. Maybe it was time for richer. My heart started beating hard. I stood up fast, almost dizzy with excitement. I needed to tell Sarah. I wanted to see her face when I said we were safe. No more fear. No more panic. No more late-night arguments about bills. No more quiet shame when a card declined. No more pretending. I opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hall. We lived in a rental house. Always a rental, because we could never save enough for a down payment. The place was small, which meant you could hear almost everything. I heard voices downstairs. Sarah was in the kitchen. She must have come home early from the hospital. She was a nurse and often worked long shifts. Her feet were always sore. Her eyes were always tired. But she was not alone. There was a man's voice too. Deep. Familiar. It made my steps slow. I moved toward the stairs and stopped at the top. I stayed still because something in my body told me to listen before I walked down. Sarah's voice floated up first. She said he is clueless. The words hit me like cold water. She sounded different. Lighter, almost excited, like she was telling a funny story. She said I still think she is working extra shifts to pay down the credit cards. Then a man laughed. He said, and he believed you about your parents' mortgage being that high. My hand grabbed the banister, so hard my fingers hurt. Sarah answered of course he did. James believes everything I tell him. It is almost sad. I froze, breathing shallowly. I heard the sound of liquid being poured. Probably wine. Sarah kept wine hidden in the back of the cabinet. She said it was for special occasions. Sarah talked again, calm like she was reviewing groceries. She said the cards are maxed out, sure, but most of it is from the Mexico trip and that weekend in Napa. And the Cartier bracelet. That was worth it. You should see how it catches the light. Why stomach dropped. Mexico trip. Napa weekend. Bracelet. Those were not emergencies. Those were choices. The man asked what about the mortgage. Sarah said her parents paid that off years ago. It was an inheritance from her grandmother. But I do not know that. Every month, she tells me she is sending them money, and every month the money goes into her separate account. Then she laughed again, sharp and clean like a knife. She said she has saved almost $40,000. Money, I think, went to help her struggling parents. The world tilted. I put my other hand on the banister like the stairs might move under me. The man said, Sarah, you are incredible. And I recognized the voice fully now. Marcus, Sarah's brother. She answered that she learned from the best. Then she said something that changed how I saw every day of my marriage. She said her mother always taught her that the key to a good marriage is managing your husband. Managing what he knows, what he believes, what he thinks he is responsible for. She said, why would he question it? James is a good man. That is his problem. He is too good, too eager to be the hero. My legs shook. I lowered myself onto the top stair because I was afraid I would fall. Sarah kept talking. She said I make $60,000 a year as an accountant, live like I make 30, and give her the difference without asking where it goes. Marcus asked what she planned to do with all that money. Sarah said she had not decided. Maybe a real vacation. Not one of James's sad camping trips where we pretend hot dogs over a fire is romantic. Then she sighed, like she was tired of me. She said sometimes she wonders what life would have been like if she married someone with actual money. Someone who could give her the life she deserves. Marcus asked why she did not. There was a pause. A long pause that filled the space between us like smoke. Then Sarah laughed again, but this time it sounded tired, like someone annoyed by a job. She said by the time she figured out the truth, we were already married, my parents had died, and everyone thought she was this noble woman standing by her struggling husband. The optics of divorce would have been terrible. Optics. She said it like marriage was a public image project, not a life. Marcus said, so you stayed. Sarah said yes, and she made it work for her. Every month, she takes a little. Tax returns. Bonuses. Even the settlement for my car accident. She takes a percentage before I see the full amount. She said I think we are broke because she keeps telling me we are broke. She said the best part is I feel guilty. I work harder. I pick up extra clients. I say yes to overtime. And she keeps collecting. I sat on the stair with my heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. My phone was still in my hand. For $0.8 million. I had been ready to hand it to her like a trophy. To prove I was worthy. To save us. But now, every word she said upstairs made my body colder. Marcus asked what if he finds out. Sarah said he will not. James does not look at bank statements. Too depressing. He says he does not track my spending because he trusts me. She said even if he did find something, she would cry. Say she had a shopping addiction. Promised to get help. And I would forgive her. She said he always forgives me. That part hurt because it was true. 3 minutes earlier, I would have forgiven her for anything. I would have held her and said we would figure it out. But those 3 minutes were gone. A different version of me existed now. Marcus said she was a genius. Sarah said she was a survivor. There's a difference. Ice clinked in a glass. Then she said the sentence that broke something inside me cleanly. She said James is sweet and reliable. He would be a great father if we ever have kids, which is why I keep saying I'm not ready, because kids are expensive and would cut into my savings. But he is not what I wanted. He is what I settled for. Settled for. 7 years. I thought about every late night I stayed awake working. Every lunch I skipped. Every pair of shoes I wore until they tore. Every project I accepted because it paid. Every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, because I believed we were building a future. 7 years of lies. I stood up slowly, carefully like my body was made of thin glass. My hand stopped shaking. Instead, my mind became strangely clear. For $0.8 million was mine. Sarah would never touch it. I walked back into the bedroom quietly and closed the door without making a sound. I sat at the small desk in the corner, the one I use for work spreadsheets and tax documents. I opened my laptop. First, I called Margaret back. I told her I needed to protect the inheritance. I asked what steps I needed to take to keep it as separate property. She explained trusts, accounts in my name only, and careful rules about not mixing the money with joint finances. She sounded slightly surprised, like most people who get this news are too excited to think about legal protection. But she stayed professional. She said she would have papers ready Wednesday. She also offered recommendations for financial advisors who specialize in this. I thanked her. Then I opened my browser and started searching for divorce attorneys, private investigators, and forensic accountants. I took notes in a password-protected document. I made a folder inside another folder inside another folder, buried deep. Downstairs I could still hear laughter and voices. Sarah and Marcus sounding proud of themselves, like thieves counting money after a clean job. They did not know the floor under them had cracked. I thought about marching down the stairs and confronting them. But I did not, because Sarah was right about one thing. I was a good man. Too good. Too trusting. Too eager to be the hero. But she made one mistake. She thought good meant weak. She thought trusting meant stupid. She thought kindness meant blindness. It did not. I opened another tab and searched for apartments near my office. 1 bedroom. Available immediately. I saved 3 listings. I drafted emails to landlords, planning to view them when Sarah was at work or wherever she actually went during her so-called extra shifts. Then I opened our shared banking app. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of transactions, transfers, deposits. I created a spreadsheet tracking the pattern of payments Sarah claimed she sent to her parents. Dates, amounts, notes. Evidence. Proof. A paper trail. Outside. The sun lowered and warm light came through the curtains. It made the room look calm and safe, like a postcard. It felt like a lie. This house. This life. This marriage. It was a stage set built to keep me playing my role. The devoted husband. The provider. The man who never questioned. That man died today. The man left behind was still kind, but not foolish. The right thing was not forgiveness. The right thing was the truth, delivered with the same cold precision Sarah used to hollow out our marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Working late tonight. Do not wait up. Love you. I stared at the last two words. Love you. Did she even know what love meant? Or was it just another tool? I typed back, okay, be safe. Then I went back to planning. Wednesday, I would sign papers and secure the inheritance. Then I would hire a private investigator. I needed to know where the money really went, what Sarah really did, who else was involved. Then, when I had all the pieces, I would sit her down and lay everything out. Not with shouting. Not with violence. Not with drama. With evidence. With clarity. With facts. I heard a door downstairs. Marcus leaving, maybe. Sarah moved around in the kitchen, humming like she was happy. I closed my laptop and stood. In the mirror above the dresser, I saw my face. Same body. Same tired eyes. Same receding hairline and worry lines. But the look was different. These eyes had seen the truth. Once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. I picked up the laundry basket and kept folding. Her clothes and my clothes tangled together like the last 7 years. But not for much longer. Wednesday morning arrived with gray clouds and the threat of rain. I woke at 5:30 a.m., the way I always did. Sarah slept beside me, peaceful, hair spread across the pillow. This used to make my chest ache with love. Now it made me feel hollow. I got ready quietly. Shower. Shave. I put on the gray suit I saved for important meetings. I chose a blue tie Sarah gave me for our 5th anniversary. For a moment, I thought about changing it. Then I realized it was perfect. Let her think everything was normal. Let her believe the show was still running. In the kitchen, I made coffee and toast. Outside, our neighbor's porch light was on. The Mitchells. Good people. Jerry Mitchell helped me replace a water heater last year and refused payment. His wife Linda brought casseroles when Sarah worked double shifts, or when I thought she did. How many people had been part of this story without knowing? Sarah came into the kitchen around 7. She wore the silk robe I bought her last Christmas, expensive enough that I felt guilty buying it. She poured coffee and asked if I had a big day. Her voice sounded soft, unguarded. This was the version of Sarah that could almost make me doubt what I heard. I told her I had a meeting with a new client. Not a lie. Margaret Chun was a new client, in a way. Sarah checked her phone, then said she had a shift until 6. Chinese for dinner. I said sure. She looked up at me, and for a second I wondered if she could see the crack in the world. But she only saw what she expected. She asked if I was okay. I seemed tense. I said I was nervous about the meeting. She stepped close, straightened my tie with cool fingers, and told me I would be great. Then she kissed my cheek. She said that is why I married you. You are reliable. Reliable. Like an appliance. Useful. Dependable. Not loved. After she left, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, breathing. Rain began to fall, light and steady. My phone buzzed. My sister Emma texted from California. She asked about a video call later. I had not spoken to her properly in months. She was the only family I had left. I needed her, but I did not want to drag her into this yet. I texted back that I was going through some things and would explain soon. She replied quickly that she was there when I was ready, and she wrote, "Love you, little brother." The words hit me harder than I expected. I drove downtown to Whitmore and Associates. The building was glass and steel, the kind of quiet wealth that does not shout. The lobby had marble floors and a receptionist trained to smile in a way that made you feel welcome and small at the same time. I gave my name. They sent me to the 11th floor. In the elevator mirrors, I watched myself rise. James Harrison in a gray suit, holding a briefcase that mostly contained fear and determination. Margaret Chin's office overlooked the city. Rain streaked down the windows. She was younger than I expected, sharp eyes behind frameless glasses, handshake firm. She showed me the documents. Then she explained something important. Because I was married, certain state laws could complicate assets. But inheritance is usually separate property if you keep it separate. That meant accounts only in my name. No joint accounts. No mixing money. No paying joint debts with it unless documented carefully. She leaned forward and asked why I was concerned about protecting it. I met her eyes and told her the truth. I was preparing for divorce. She did not look shocked, but I could tell she noticed. She said in that case, she recommended extra steps. Trust structure, careful documentation, and she could refer me to a family law attorney and forensic accountant. We signed an initial papers for an hour. Each page felt like another brick in a wall I was building between Sarah and the money. Margaret suggested I open a new email address for this matter. She warned me to be careful with documents at home. I told her I planned to move out soon. She said good. Physical separation strengthens protection. Before I left, she said something that stuck. She said she had done this work for years and could usually tell quickly if someone would make smart choices or disastrous ones. She said I seemed like someone whose eyes had opened recently. Then she told me to protect myself first. I left with a folder of paperwork and an unreal feeling in my chest. The money was mine. Sarah cannot touch it. In the parking garage, I called the attorney Margaret referred, Robert Shun, no relation. He could see me the next day. Then I called the first apartment I had saved. A simple one-bedroom near my office. I toured it that afternoon. Beige carpet, blank walls, small windows facing a courtyard. It looked like nothing, and that nothing felt like freedom. I took it immediately. I paid the deposit from a new personal account Sarah did not know existed. I stood in the empty living room, holding keys and listening to the silence. This was real. Then I stopped for coffee and called Emma. When she answered, I told her everything. The inheritance. The conversation I overheard. Sarah's lies. Her brother helping. The secret account. Emma stayed quiet for a long time. Then she said she never liked Sarah. She told me she had noticed things years ago, but kept quiet because I was happy and young. She said sorry. I told her it was not her fault. When we hung up, I sat outside the house in my car watching rain. Sarah texted that her shift ended early and she would pick up Chinese. I replied casually. Then I updated my notes. Evidence to gather. Questions for the accountant. A timeline of lies. Sarah came home before 6 carrying bags of food, complaining about a difficult patient. She looked tired. Maybe she really worked that day. Or maybe acting tired is exhausting. We ate at the kitchen table, the same place where days earlier she laughed with Marcus about me. She told me stories from the hospital. I laughed in the right places. She asked about my meeting. I said it was good. Life-changing, maybe. She squeezed my hand and said I deserved something good. If I had not heard her in that kitchen, I would have believed her. That night we watched television together, her head on my shoulder. During a commercial, she said she loved me and kissed me. I said I love her too. And the worst part was, part of me still did. Not the real Sarah. The Sarah I thought existed. The imaginary woman I had built in my mind. Later, after she slept, I found a private investigator and sent an email. Then I emailed my boss asking for personal days. Outside, the rain stopped and stars appeared, cold and distant. In 3 days, I would move into the apartment. In a week, I would start divorce proceedings. Soon I would have enough proof to end the game for good. But for now, I still acted normal. I stayed the reliable husband, the one she thought she could manage. Because evidence matters. And because the truth, once organized, is stronger than any performance. The next morning, I moved through the day like I was carrying a secret made of stone. Sarah acted normal. She always acted normal. That was part of what made her dangerous. She could smile while lying. She could kiss me while planning. She could look at me like I was her safe place while using me like a tool. I kept my own face calm. I kept my voice steady. I did not ask questions. I did not look at her phone. I did not search through drawers. I did not do anything that would warn her. Instead, I built my plan quietly. I used the apartment keys in my pocket like a tiny promise to myself. A door that would open to a life without her voice controlling the story. That Friday afternoon, I met the private investigator. Her name was Susan Torres. In my head, I expected a private investigator to look like someone from a movie. Hard face, dark coat, cigarette smoke, sunglasses, suspicious eyes. Susan looked like a normal woman you would trust with a lost wallet. Mid-40s, jeans and a blazer, kind eyes, clean hair, simple jewelry. Her handshake was firm, not showy. We met at a quiet cafe. She slid into the booth across from me and looked at my face like she was reading the truth in my skin. She thanked me for meeting in person. She said email would have been fine, but she liked to see clients face-to-face first. I asked why. She told me sometimes people hire her to prove a spouse is cheating. Sometimes people hire her to prove the spouse is not cheating. And sometimes, she said, people already know the truth and they need proof to protect themselves in court. I told her I was the third type. She nodded like she expected that. Then she pulled out a tablet and told me to start from the beginning. She said not to worry about what seemed important or not. She said she had done this work for 20 years and she would know what mattered. So I told her everything I knew. The overheard conversation, the secret account, the fake mortgage, the credit card lies, Marcus laughing in my kitchen, Sarah calling me clueless, Sarah saying she settled for me. Susan listened without interrupting. She did not gasp. She did not judge. She did not say poor you. She just took notes like a doctor tracking symptoms. When I finished, she sat back and breathed once slow. Then she told me what she was seeing. She said my wife had been committing financial fraud in a marriage. Theft by deception. And if she was lying about work hours too, then work might be a cover for something else. I asked what kind of something else. Susan said that was what she would find out. Then she warned me. She said this could get expensive. She said some truths hurt worse than the first truth. Then she asked if I was sure. I thought about Sarah's voice upstairs. That bright, excited tone as she described manipulating me. That casual laugh about stealing money. The way she spoke about me like I was a dumb animal. I told Susan I was sure. She nodded again and started listing what she needed. Sarah's usual work schedule. Her routes. Her phone number. Her car make, model, plate. Any passwords I had access to, but she warned me about legal limits. She said photos help, recent ones. I gave her what I could. Susan looked at a photo of Sarah smiling in sunlight, hair shining, eyes bright. Susan said Sarah was beautiful. Then Susan said something that made my stomach tighten. She said yes, they usually are. The ones who think they can get away with it. They rely on being underestimated. I asked how long it would take. Susan said it depends. If this is only money and fake work hours, maybe a week or two. If there's more an affair, gambling, drugs, anything, it could take longer. Then she gave me the most important instruction. She told me not to change my patterns. Not to confront Sarah. Not to ask leading questions. Not to suddenly become suspicious. Because if Sarah noticed, evidence would disappear. Susan said evidence is everything. Then she asked if I was prepared for the possibility of another person. Not Marcus. Another person. A lover. A partner. Someone Sarah met during those hours she claimed she was working. The thought had been hovering in my head like a shadow. But hearing it out loud made it heavier. I told Susan I did not know. Susan told me to start preparing anyway. She said when someone builds an elaborate financial lie, there is usually an emotional reason too. Something deeper than money. Before she left, she gave me her card and told me I could call anytime. She said the next few weeks might be rough. After Susan left, I stayed at the cafe a while, watching normal people live normal lives. Couples sharing cake, older men reading newspapers, students typing on laptops. People who still believed their relationships were simple and safe. My phone buzzed. Sarah texted about a movie that night. She added cute emojis. She acted like a loving wife planning a date. I replied yes. That evening, I drove to the empty apartment again. I stood in the living room and listened to the silence. The silence felt louder than sound, but it felt clean. I ordered basic furniture. A bed, a couch, a desk, a small table. Nothing fancy, just a place to exist. Then I got a call from Robert Chun, the divorce attorney. He said he reviewed preliminary information from Margaret. He said I was in a strong position because the inheritance was protected as separate property and I was establishing physical separation. He reminded me California is no-fault divorce, so you do not need to prove wrongdoing to end a marriage. But he said wrongdoing matters for money, especially if we can prove fraud. He told me Sarah would probably ask for spousal support. He said she would claim she deserved the lifestyle we built. He said she would claim she made sacrifices. I felt sick listening to that. Robert said our job would be to show she actually profited from the marriage through deception. He said we needed bank records, statements, proof of the secret account, proof of where the money went. Then his tone softened slightly, like he knew I was trying not to break. He told me cold is better than stupid. Emotion makes people do expensive things they regret. He told me to keep protecting myself. After the call, I drove home and did the date night anyway. Sarah was dressed nicely. She looked beautiful in that effortless way. She took my hand at the theater. She whispered comments during the movie. She laughed at the funny parts. She leaned her head on my shoulder like we were still two people on the same side. The movie was a thriller about a woman discovering her husband had a secret life. The irony sat on my chest like a heavy blanket. At one point, Sarah whispered how terrible it would be to find out your whole life was a lie. I said, yes, imagine that. She squeezed my hand, warm and sure. I felt like I was holding the hand of a stranger wearing my wife's skin. When we got home, she kissed me and said she loved me. I said it back, not because it was true in that moment, but because Susan told me not to change my patterns. Because evidence is everything. The next day, Saturday, we moved through normal routines. Grocery store, cleaning, laundry, dinner, a show on TV. All of it felt like acting. Sunday morning, Sarah left the house in scrubs at around 9. She kissed me at the door and told me to eat something real for lunch. She drove away. I stood at the window until her car disappeared. Then I went to the apartment and started setting it up. I hung curtains. I unpacked boxes of my clothes and books. I stocked cabinets with food for one. Every item I moved felt like cutting a thread. That night, Susan called. She said she had preliminary findings. My heart started beating fast. She told me Sarah left the house in scrubs, drove to the hospital, went inside, then came out less than 20 minutes later. She was no longer in scrubs. She changed into jeans and a leather jacket. She got into a different car, a silver Mercedes. Susan said it was registered to Marcus Chun. Sarah and Marcus drove to a shopping center. They went into Nordstrom. They came out with bags. They ate lunch at a fancy place. Long lunch, wine. Then they went to more stores and a jewelry store. Susan said she had photos, video, timestamps, and receipts where possible. I told her to send them now. The photos arrived minutes later. Sarah walking with Marcus, bags in her hands, smiling. Sarah in a fitting room area, trying on clothes. Sarah holding up her wrist at a jewelry counter, looking at something sparkling. In the photos, Sarah looked alive. Not tired, not stressed, not overworked, not a woman drowning in debt and sacrifice. She looked like someone enjoying a sunny life. Susan said there was more. She followed them after shopping. They drove to an address in the hills. A very expensive area. Marcus went inside. Sarah waited in the car for about 20 minutes. Then she drove back to the hospital. She changed back into scrubs in the parking lot. Then she left the hospital right on time, like she finished a full shift. I asked whose house it was. Susan said she was working on it. Then Susan asked me what I knew about Marcus. She said the Mercedes was expensive and the house area was extremely expensive. She said if Marcus was in tech, he was doing very well. Or the money came from somewhere else. Susan asked if she could dig into Marcus too. I told her yes, do whatever she needed. When I hung up, something inside me shifted. I was not just hurt anymore. I was clear. Sarah did not just lie about money. She lived a double life. And Marcus helped her. This was not a small betrayal. It felt like a system. That night, I started building a real evidence file. I moved every photo and video into folders, labeled by date. I matched them to bank statements and transfers. I wrote notes like an accountant because that was what I was. Cold facts. No drama. Just proof. Sarah texted at dawn. She said her shift was over. She was exhausted. She loved me. I stared at the message. Then I typed back that I loved her too. 2 words that felt like poison. But it was still part of the plan. Monday morning, I woke up in the apartment for the first time. The curtains were not thick enough, so sunlight made bright stripes on the wall. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then memory hit me all at once. I had texted Sarah the night before that I needed space and was staying at a hotel. She called repeatedly. I let it ring. Her voicemails went from confused to begging to angry. I did not answer. Now she texted again asking where I was. I replied that I was fine and needed a few days. That day, I went to work because work was a safe place for my brain. Numbers are honest. Numbers do not perform. My assistant Monica noticed immediately that something was wrong. She told me I looked terrible. She forced me to eat breakfast. A diner meal with eggs, bacon, pancakes, and orange juice. Then she demanded the truth. I told her part of it. Not the inheritance. But I told her about overhearing Sarah, the fake mortgage, the secret account, and Susan's shopping evidence. Monica's face turned hard with anger. She said, what kind of person does that? Then she said she never liked Sarah. Monica reminded me of things I forgot. Sarah complaining at a party about sacrifice while wearing expensive accessories. Sarah playing the martyr while living like a queen. Monica held my hand across the table and told me I was not responsible for Sarah's choices. She told me not to burn myself to keep Sarah warm. That afternoon, I met Robert in his office. I gave him the folder of evidence. He read it slowly. He looked impressed. He said it was organized and usable in court. He explained what the evidence could do. It could change asset division and reduce or eliminate spousal support. He reminded me California has rules about recording calls, 2-party consent. He told me not to talk to Sarah directly once proceedings started. Then he slid divorce papers toward me. I read them. My marriage reduced to legal words and checkboxes. I signed. It felt unreal, like signing the end of a story I did not choose. Robert told me Sarah would be served soon. He warned me she might try to contact me. He told me to route everything through him. He also warned me about false allegations. He said sometimes when people lose control, they accuse the other person of abuse. He told me to protect myself and not meet Sarah alone. I left his office feeling both stronger and more tired than I have ever felt. Later that day, Susan called again. She found information about the Hills house. The house belonged to a shell company. The registered agent was Sarah's father, David Chun. Susan said the shell company owned other properties too. Expensive ones. And there were more companies. Vehicles. Even a yacht record. I told Susan it felt impossible. Sarah always said her parents were middle class. Susan said public records did not match that story. She said she believed the whole family might be running a long con. Not just on me, but on anyone who believed their image. I sat on the floor in the apartment and stared at the blank wall. 7 years of helping her parents. 7 years of guilt. 7 years of being told we were broke. And behind that story, millions hidden in companies and properties. That night, Sarah was served. The next morning, my phone filled with missed calls and messages. Her texts moved through stages. Confused, angry, begging, promising, then threatening. She demanded explanations. She said I was cruel. She said she loved me. Then she said her lawyer would destroy me. It was like watching a mask slip, then return, then slip again. Her mother called too, crying and asking me to forgive and remember vows. I told her everything goes through my attorney. Then her tone changed. She asked who told me about the shell companies. She said the information was private. I told her it was public record. She got angry and accused me of digging into family matters. I told her it was my business because Sarah used their fake hardship as a cover story to steal from our marriage. Her mother called it mistakes. I called it fraud. I ended the call and blocked the numbers. Soon an unknown lawyer called claiming to represent Sarah. I told her to contact Robert. I blocked that number too. I thought the worst part was over. I was wrong. One evening, I returned to the apartment and found a note taped to my door. The handwriting was not Sarah's. It warned me I was making a mistake. It said people who hurt their family tend to face unexpected difficulties. No signature. I photographed it. I called Robert and Susan. Susan said it was a threat, vague but real. Robert told me to file a police report to create a paper trail. I did. That night, I locked every door and sat in the silence with the curtains drawn. Then my phone buzzed with a message from a man named Michael Torres. Susan had given him my contact information. He said he was Sarah's ex, and he was sorry, and he understood. I called him. His voice was tired but kind, like someone who had survived an old storm. He told me Sarah did similar things to him. Borrowing money, emergencies, parent hardship stories, then disappearing when he started to ask questions. He said he would testify if needed. He said he wanted to help stop her from doing it again. After that call, I felt something else shift. I was not alone. I was not the first. And if I did not push forward, I would not be the last. Susan later found another ex too, David Park, who had hired Susan years ago for a similar reason. The pattern was identical. It was like Sarah had a script she reused. Same lines, different man. Robert told me pattern matters in court. It shows intent. It shows this was not a one-time mistake. It shows she knew what she was doing. Then Sarah tried another strategy. She showed up at my office building, crying in the lobby. Monica called me and said Sarah was making a scene. I told Monica to call security and have Sarah removed. After Sarah left, she left an envelope for me. Robert told me not to open it alone. I brought it to him. Inside was a long letter. Sarah claimed she was protecting herself. She tried to turn theft into fear. She tried to turn lies into trauma. She said she needed an escape plan. Then she offered a quiet settlement. She said I could keep the inheritance. She would keep her family money. We would split whatever small marital assets exist. No spousal support. But it came with a catch. Silence. She wanted me to stop digging. Stop exposing. Stop reporting. She wanted to walk away clean. Robert told me it was not a bad deal on the surface, but it protected her from consequences. He said the choice was mine. I looked at Sarah's letter and felt the old me try to rise. The forgiving one. The one who wanted peace more than truth. Then I heard her voice again in my mind. James is clueless. He believes everything. I settled for him, and the new me stayed standing. I told Robert no settlement on her terms. I wanted exposure. I wanted consequences. Because if I stayed quiet, she would do it again. That is when the threats increased. More unknown numbers. More warnings. More messages telling me to choose wisely. I documented them all. Susan found something else. Sarah was meeting a new man. A wealthy man. A venture capitalist with a lot of money. Susan said Sarah met him at a hospital charity event. Susan believed Sarah was lining up the next target before a divorce even finished. Robert used that to file motions. To show Sarah was not a broken wife. She was a moving machine. A judge scheduled a hearing. The day before, I barely slept. That morning, I walked into the courthouse with Robert. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Sarah walked in wearing a simple dress and a controlled face. She did not look at me. Her family sat behind her, watching like this was a show. The judge looked sharp and tired of games. Robert presented evidence. Bank records. Photos. Video. Timelines. Witness statements from the exes. Proof of shell companies. Proof of lies. Then something happened that made the room go silent. A recording played. It was Sarah's voice in my kitchen, saying I was clueless. Marcus laughing. Sarah talking about stealing money and hiding it. The judge looked at Sarah and asked if she denied it. Sarah stood. She admitted it was her. She tried to say she was protecting herself. The judge's face did not change. The judge said she knew the difference between protection and fraud. The judge granted the divorce. The judge ordered an unequal split in my favor. The judge ordered restitution. The judge denied spousal support. And the judge referred the matter to authorities for investigation. Sarah collapsed in her chair like her body finally ran out of acting energy. Her father stood up and complained. The judge warned him to sit down or be removed. Robert shook my hand and said it was over. Outside, the sky looked huge and clean. For the first time in months, I could breathe again. Outside the courthouse, the air felt sharper than it used to, like the world had been cleaned with cold water. Robert stood beside me on the steps. Susan was a few feet away, watching the sidewalk and the street like she expected someone to jump out from behind a tree. Michael and David were there too, quiet and solid, like two posts holding up a fence. Sarah came out later with her attorney. Her face was pale. Her eyes looked dry, not like someone who cried from pain, but like someone who ran out of tactics. Her parents followed her, stiff and angry. Marcus was not there, which somehow made it worse, because it meant he was somewhere else doing something. Sarah did not look at me. She walked past like I was air. But her father stared. It was not a normal stare. Not disbelief. Not sadness. It was the stare of a man who had lost control and wanted to remind you that he hated losing. Robert leaned close and spoke low. Do not react. Do not speak. Do not give them anything. I nodded. My hands were steady, but my body felt strange. Like my brain was floating a foot above my head, watching me live my own life from a distance. We walked to the parking garage together. Susan stayed on my right side. Michael on my left. David behind. It looked like a normal group leaving a building, but I knew what it really was. Protection. In my car, I sat still for a moment, both hands on the steering wheel. Robert tapped the window lightly. I lowered it. He told me again it was over in the legal sense, but not over in the human sense. People like the Chins do not accept a loss with dignity. They treat a loss like an insult. He reminded me to keep documenting. Every text, every email, every note, every strange car parked near my place, every new number calling. And he told me something that made me pause. The judge referring the case to investigators could change everything. That referral was not a guarantee of criminal charges, but it was a door opening. And if the door opened, the Chun family would panic harder. I asked if I should be afraid. Robert said not afraid. Prepared. I drove back to the apartment, not the house. When I walked inside, the silence welcomed me like a quiet friend. No perfume smell. No forced laughter. No sudden shift in mood because Sarah wanted something. Just my space. I took my shoes off and sat on the edge of the couch. I stared at my hands. I tried to feel relief, but relief did not come right away. Instead, I felt grief. Not grief for Sarah, not the real Sarah. Grief for the version I made in my head. The woman I thought I married. The marriage I thought we were building. The future I believed in when I was 23 and sure that love could fix any numbers. I let the grief sit there. I did not fight it. That night, Emma called. Her voice was soft, careful, like she was walking into a room full of glass. I told her the hearing was done. I told her the judge granted the divorce and shut down spousal support and ordered restitution. Emma let out a breath like she had been holding it for weeks. Then she asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. I said I did not know yet. Emma said that was fine. She said sometimes you do not feel okay right away because your body is still in survival mode. She said it might take time for my nervous system to understand that the danger had passed. I wanted to believe her. After the call, I ate something simple and went to bed early. But sleep did not come easily. Every sound outside the apartment made my eyes open. A car door, a distant horn, a voice in the hallway. My brain kept trying to predict threats. Like it had learned a new job and refused to quit. At around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single line. You think this is finished? It is not. I stared at the screen. My stomach tightened. Then I did exactly what Robert and Susan trained me to do. Screenshot. Forward. Save. Document the date and time. Then block. I did not reply. I did not argue. I did not ask who it was. Silence was part of my armor now. The next morning, Susan came to the apartment for a short meeting. She brought a folder and a flash drive. She told me the full report was finished. Photos, video, location logs, timestamps, notes about behavior. She also brought something else. A list of security upgrades. Simple ones. Door camera, better locks, a plan for parking so my car was less exposed, a way to vary my route without making it obvious, a rule about not opening my door to unexpected visitors. I asked her if I was being paranoid. Susan told me paranoia is when you imagine danger with no evidence. Caution is when you respond to patterns and facts. Then she reminded me I already had a threat note on my door and multiple warning texts. That is evidence. I bought the door camera that day. I also changed my routine slightly. Not dramatic changes, just enough to not be predictable. At work, Monica was ready. She had moved my schedule around. She kept visitors screened. She told security to call her if anyone asked for me by name. I asked if I was causing trouble for her. Monica looked at me like I was being foolish. She told me my only job was to protect myself and stay employed. Everything else was noise. Then she handed me a sticky note. It had 3 words. Do not engage. I kept that note on my computer monitor for weeks. 2 days later, Robert called me into his office again. He said Sarah's attorney had sent a message asking for a private settlement, even after the judge's order. Robert laughed when he told me. He said they were trying to negotiate after losing, because they still believed the world could be bought. Sarah's side offered to pay me some money if I signed a confidentiality agreement. Robert told them no. He told them we already had court orders. And if they tried to hide assets or avoid restitution, we would pursue enforcement. And if they tried intimidation again, we would file new motions. Then Robert told me something that hit harder than I expected. He said the Chun family had hired a public relations person. Not officially, not openly, but he had signs of it. Small leaks, small rumors, the kind of whispers that can spread fast. Sarah was painting herself as a victim. She was telling people I was controlling, that I held money over her head, that I embarrassed her with cruel accusations, that I hired investigators because I was jealous and unstable. Robert told me not to fight this in public. He said public fights are messy and rarely help in court. He said if I tried to defend myself to everyone, I would look desperate. He said I should let official documents speak. He told me again, facts beat stories, but only if you stay calm long enough for the facts to reach the room. After the meeting, I sat in my car and felt something heavy in my chest. It was unfair. Sarah could lie again and again, and people would believe her because she cried pretty and spoke smoothly. I wanted to shout the truth from the rooftops. But Robert was right. This was not about winning the gossip war. This was about staying safe and keeping my legal advantage. So I stayed quiet. Then the IRS letter arrived. Not to me directly. It came through Robert because some communications were routed to him. Susan had made contact with someone she trusted. She had shared information, and now a formal process was starting. Robert said this could take a long time, but it was meaningful. It meant the Chin family was on a radar they did not control. A week later, I got a call from an investigator attached to a state agency. Not a friend, not a rumor, a real person asking real questions. He asked about the shell companies, the fake mortgage story, the transfers, the false claims, the threats. He asked if I would provide evidence. I said yes, because this time I was not protecting their image. I was protecting the future. After the call, I felt exhausted but also steady, like I was finally walking in a straight line instead of spinning. That weekend, I met Michael and David again. We met at a small restaurant, nothing fancy. The 3 of us sat at a corner table like we were part of a support group. Nobody asked to join. Michael looked at me and said the court result felt like a miracle. David said he was proud of me. I did not know what to say. Pride felt strange, like wearing someone else's coat. I told them I was still having moments where I questioned myself. Was I too harsh? Was I too cold? Was I becoming like her? David shook his head. He told me something that stayed with me. He said being firm is not the same as being cruel. Setting boundaries is not the same as punishment. Protecting yourself is not the same as revenge. Michael added something too. He said con artists love soft people because soft people blame themselves. They train you to think your pain means you did something wrong, and then they use your guilt like a leash. I stared at my plate and realized how true that was. For years, I thought my job in the marriage was to fix everything, even problems I did not create. Now I was learning a different job. My job was to see reality and respond like an adult, not like a child trying to earn love. After dinner, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, another warning. Drop it. Walk away. Last chance. I showed it to David. David's face went tight. He told me Marcus used the same line on him. Choose wisely. Last chance. Walk away. David said, it is a script. They reuse it. Because it worked before. I forwarded the message to Robert and blocked it. When I got home, the door camera notification showed someone had walked past my door and paused for a second. Just a pause. Not a knock, not a note, but enough to make my skin prickle. Susan told me later it might be nothing. Or it might be a test. Sometimes people test your fear. They want to see if you break patterns. If you call them. If you panic and do something careless. I did not. I kept living. I went to work. I ate. I slept when I could. I walked in the evenings. I tried to reconnect with my body. And slowly, I began to feel something else. Anger. Not wild anger. Not screaming anger. Clean anger. The kind that says this was wrong and it mattered. The kind that moves you forward. One day, about 3 weeks after the hearing, Sarah finally sent a message through official channels. Not a text. Not a call. A formal email through her attorney. She wanted to set a restitution schedule. She wanted to pay in smaller pieces. Robert negotiated terms. He pushed for proof of her accounts, proof of income, proof of assets. Sarah sighed, tried to resist. They tried to delay. But the court order was the court order. And for the first time, Sarah could not charm her way out. A month after the hearing, money started arriving. Not all at once, but enough to prove something important. She could pay, which meant she had always been able to pay. She just chose not to. She chose to let me suffer while she built her private cushion, knowing that made my grief sharpen. But it also made it cleaner. It was not a tragic misunderstanding. It was a choice. And choices have consequences. That same month, Susan contacted me with another update. She had identified more names. People who may have been involved with Sarah before me. Some were just rumors. Some were clear. She told me she was being careful. She did not want to accuse anyone without evidence. But she said the pattern was consistent. There were gaps in Sarah's timeline that did not match her income. Someone funded her lifestyle during those gaps, either family money or other relationships or both. Susan said if the agencies investigating wanted to widen the net, these names could matter. I asked if this would ever end. Susan said yes, but not quickly. She said families like this survive by exhausting you. They want you tired. They want you to stop. They want you to trade justice for quiet. She told me I was doing the right thing, but she warned me again. When you pressure a system built on secrets, it pushes back. That week, the pushback came in a new form. A complaint was filed against me at work. It claimed I was harassing Sarah. It claimed I used my position to intimidate her. It claimed I was stalking her by hiring investigators. HR called me in. Monica came with me, not officially, but she sat outside the door like a guard dog. The HR manager looked uncomfortable. She said they had to investigate any complaint. I told her I understood. I told her I had court documents. I had police reports. I had legal representation. And I had not contacted Sarah directly since the divorce process began. I gave HR copies of the restraining instructions from my attorney about no direct contact. I gave them copies of the threats filed with police. I gave them the court summary. The HR manager read, and her face shifted. She said she would close the complaint unless new evidence appeared. When I walked out, my legs felt weak. Not because I was guilty, because I saw how far they would go. They were willing to attack my job, my stability, my reputation, because that is what they did to keep control. That night, I called Emma and told her about the complaint. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something simple. They're trying to punish you for telling the truth. That is what liars do when they cannot win with lies anymore. They try to make honesty expensive. Her words sat in my chest like a warm stone. I was tired, but I was still standing. 2 weeks later, Robert told me the district attorney's office wanted more information. Not a promise of charges yet. Just more questions. They wanted to know the full timeline. They wanted statements from Michael and David. They wanted details about Marcus's seminar and the shell companies. Robert said this was unusual. Not impossible, but not common either. He said the judge's referral gave weight. And the pattern across multiple victims made it harder to dismiss as just marriage drama. I met Robert, Susan, Michael, and David in Robert's conference room again. We talked through everything. We kept it simple. Dates, numbers, documents, no feelings, just facts. After the meeting, I felt something that surprised me. Hope, not hope for revenge. Hope for a world where Sarah could not just reset and do it again. Hope that maybe the next man she approached would be safe because the record existed. Hope that my pain would become a warning sign for someone else, like a fence around a cliff. That night, I went for a walk near the ocean. The waves looked steady and uncaring. I sat on a bench and watched couples pass. I wondered if they were real, if they were safe, if they would still be kind when life tested them. I thought about what Monica said, that I do not have to set myself on fire to keep someone else warm. I thought about what Emma said, that trust is not stupidity, but needs boundaries. I thought about what Michael said, that con artists train soft people to blame themselves. And I thought about something else too. 3 minutes before the inheritance call, I would have forgiven Sarah for anything. That version of me is gone. Not dead in a bitter way, dead in a growing up way. Some parts of you have to end so the rest of you can live. When I got back to the apartment, there was no note on the door. No threat text. No shadow. Just the quiet. I made tea and opened my laptop. I wrote a single sentence at the top of a new document. Lessons I will not forget. Then I wrote, do not ignore patterns. Do not call lying love. Do not confuse guilt for responsibility. Do not give access to someone who disrespects your reality. Do not sacrifice your safety for someone else's comfort. And most of all, being kind does not mean being blind. I saved the file. Then I turned off the light and went to bed. and for the first time in a long time, I slept more than 2 hours without waking. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm again, but this time my chest was not tight. I still felt tired, but it was a normal tired, not the kind that comes from fear. I made coffee and stood by the window. The courtyard below looked ordinary. People walking dogs. A delivery truck. Someone jogging with earbuds in. Life moving like it always had. For years, I thought ordinary was boring. Now, ordinary looked like safety. At 9 a.m., Robert texted me that we had a new court date for enforcement. It was not about divorce anymore. The divorce was already granted. This was about making sure the restitution got paid and making sure Sarah did not hide money. Robert also told me something else. Sarah had filed paperwork asking the court to reduce what she owed, claiming hardship. Hardship. That word made my jaw tighten. I had lived hardship. Real hardship. Peanut butter lunches. Shoes with holes. Stress headaches. Late nights. Fear of bills. Fear of losing the house we rented. Sarah lived luxury hardship, where hardship meant she could not shop as freely for a few months. I wanted to rage. I wanted to send messages. I wanted to argue. Instead, I did what I had trained myself to do. I documented the feeling in my head, then I let it pass. At work, Monica handed me a folder. She did not smile. She looked serious. She said someone called the office asking for me. A man. Calm voice. Polite. He asked what time I left work usually. He asked what car I drove. He pretended it was a client question. Monica told him nothing. She said she did not like the call. I felt my stomach drop. Susan had warned me about this too. Information phishing. Not direct threats. Just questions. I asked Monica if she had the number. She did. I forwarded it to Susan. Susan replied quickly. Good catch. Do not change your routine dramatically. Just tighten it. I will run the number. I focused on work. But my brain was half on the window, half on the hallway, half on the idea that someone might be watching. At lunch, I ate in the office kitchen with Monica. She did not let me eat alone that day. She made it casual, like it was nothing. But I knew what she was doing. She was keeping me in view. After lunch, HR emailed again. Another complaint came in. This one claimed I was stalking Sarah by trying to ruin her family. The complaint said I contacted agencies, and that was harassment. I sat in my chair and stared at the screen. They were trying to make accountability look like abuse. I walked to HR with a calm face and a fast heartbeat. I told them the same thing I told them before. I have legal representation. I have court orders. I have not contacted Sarah directly. Everything goes through attorneys and proper channels. The HR manager looked tired. She said she understood. She said the complaints were being noted, but my documentation was strong. She said something else too. She said it looked like a pattern of retaliatory complaints. Retaliatory. That word mattered. It meant someone else could see what was happening. When I got back to my desk, Monica gave me a look and nodded once like a silent good job. That night, Susan called. She told me the number from the suspicious call belonged to a prepaid phone. No name, no billing address, just a dead end. But she told me something that helped. She said she saw a car near the office parking garage on 2 different days. The same car, the same spot, the same time range. She could not prove it was connected to the Chins, but she said it matched their style. Observe, pressure, test. Susan asked me if I was willing to have her run light surveillance around my routines for a short time. I said yes. I did not want to live in fear, but I also did not want to be naive again. 2 days later, Robert called me into his office to prepare for the enforcement hearing. He explained the plan in simple steps. Step 1. We show the judge the payment schedule and the partial payments. Step 2. We show the judge the evidence that Sarah has other income streams. Step 3. We request stronger enforcement tools if she delays or lies. Step 4. We ask for attorney fees because her hardship claim is not in good faith. I asked Robert how we prove her real income. Robert smiled slightly. He said, discovery is not just for divorce. We can still demand financial disclosure for enforcement. He said if Sarah claims hardship, she opens the door for the court to ask, hardship compared to what? Robert also told me the district attorney investigator wanted to speak with me again. Not emotional talk, just facts, dates, money. Robert said the investigator was also requesting to speak with Susan and possibly with Michael and David. This meant the case was not dead. It was moving, slow but moving. That night, Emma flew in. She did not warn me. She just texted me when she landed. I am here. Do not argue. Pick me up. I laughed for the first time in days. When I saw her at the airport, she hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. I did not even realize how much I needed that until it happened. At the apartment, Emma looked around, then nodded. It is plain, she said, but it is yours. That matters. She opened my cabinets and frowned. You have no real food. I told her I had basics. Emma said basics is not food. Basics is survival. We are upgrading you to living. She went shopping and came back with bags like a storm. She cooked pasta with vegetables, real seasoning, and something that tasted like effort. We ate at my small table. Emma did not ask for details right away. She talked about normal things. Her flight, her coworker drama, her neighbor who keeps stealing packages. Then, after dinner, she looked at me and said, okay, now tell me what it feels like. I tried to answer. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then it did. I told her I felt calm and angry at the same time. Calm, because the legal part went my way. Angry because I lost years. Angry because Sarah did not just lie. She laughed about it. Angry because part of me still missed the idea of her. Emma listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and put her hand over mine. She said, "You're allowed to be angry. Anger is not poison if you use it to protect yourself and tell the truth." And she said something that surprised me. She said I should write a statement. Not for court. For me. A statement about what happened, what I believe now, what I will never accept again. She said the brain heals when it organizes chaos into meaning. That night, after Emma went to sleep on the couch, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not bullets. Not lists. Just plain sentences. I wrote that I trusted Sarah because I believed marriage was a shared truth. I wrote that I did not check the numbers because I thought trust was love. I wrote that I confused my silence with peace. I wrote that I learned love without truth is not love. It is a stage show. I wrote until my eyes burned. Then I saved the file. The next day was the enforcement hearing. Emma came with me. She sat behind me in the courtroom. Not as a witness, just as a presence. Sarah was there too. She walked in wearing a soft sweater, hair neat, face calm. Her attorney sat beside her. Sarah looked smaller than I remembered, but I knew that was part of her skill. She could shrink when it helped her. She could look fragile. Her parents were not there this time. Neither was Marcus. Maybe they learned the courtroom did not reward their noise. The judge asked about the hardship claim. Sarah's attorney spoke first. He said Sarah was struggling. He said the court order was too harsh. He said Sarah had suffered stress and reputational damage and financial instability due to the divorce. Reputational damage. I almost laughed, but I kept my face still. Robert stood and presented facts. He showed the payments Sarah had already made. He showed that Sarah was able to pay when pressured. He presented documentation that Sarah had additional income beyond nursing shifts. He showed patterns of spending that did not match hardship. The judge looked at Sarah and asked her a direct question. "Do you have other sources of income?" Sarah hesitated. That hesitation was a crack. Sarah said she had property management side work. The judge asked for documentation. Sarah's attorney tried to object. The judge overruled. The judge ordered Sarah to provide full financial disclosure within a set timeline. The judge also denied the hardship reduction request. Then the judge did something important. The judge warned Sarah that any attempt to hide assets would trigger sanctions. Sanctions meant consequences. Not just moral consequences. Real legal consequences. As we left the courtroom, Sarah finally looked at me. Just a quick glance. Her eyes were not sad. They were angry. But it was a quiet anger, like she was thinking, "I will get you later." Susan was not with us in court, but she was outside in a nearby car. She called me after I got into mine. She said, "You did well. No reaction. No drama. Good." Then she said she had an update. The car that had been parked near my office garage belonged to a rental company. Short-term rental. Paid with a card, but the name on the card was not real. Still, Susan found something. The rental was picked up by a man who looked like Marcus. She could not prove it from the grainy image alone, but she said the posture and face shape matched. It meant something. It meant Marcus was still watching. Emma heard the call on speaker. When it ended, Emma stared at me. She said, "Do you understand how sick this is? You ended the marriage. You won in court, and they still cannot stop. They cannot stop because control is their drug," I said. And the moment I said it, I realized I believed it. Emma stayed with me for a few more days. During that time, she helped me do something I avoided for weeks. She helped me go back to the old house to collect the rest of my things. Robert insisted I bring a witness. Susan insisted I do it at a time when Sarah was at work, and she insisted a police standby was a good idea. So we did it properly. I met Emma and a police officer outside. We entered together. The house smelled like Sarah. That smell hit me like a wave. For a moment, my body wanted to collapse into old habits. Old forgiveness. Old longing. Then Emma touched my shoulder lightly and said, "Keep moving." I went room by room. I took my clothes, my books, my photos of my parents, my old baseball glove from childhood, things that were mine before Sarah. In the bedroom closet, my blue tie was still there. The anniversary tie. I stared at it for a second, then left it. It was just fabric. It did not deserve power over me. In the kitchen, I saw the cabinet where Sarah kept hidden wine. I felt a flash of the moment on the stairs, hearing her laugh. Hearing Marcus call me clueless. That moment had split my life into before and after. Now I was in the after. I was not the man on the stairs anymore. I was a man walking out with my own things and a police officer nearby, calm and steady. As we left, I noticed something on the counter. A small framed picture. Me and Sarah on a hiking trail, years ago, smiling. I picked it up. For a second, I almost packed it. Then I put it back. Not because the memory was worthless, but because the memory was not the truth. Outside, the air felt lighter again. Emma exhaled. She said, "You did it. You took your life back." That night, I sat in my apartment with the boxes and felt strange again. Like I expected grief to hit harder. But it did not. Instead, I felt something like closure. Not full closure, but enough to keep walking. A week later, the DA investigator called again. He asked me to confirm details about the threats. He asked me about Marcus's seminar material. He asked me about the shell companies. He said they were building a larger picture. He did not promise charges. But he said something important. He said, "Your documentation helped. Your calm approach helped. The paper trail helped." When he hung up, I sat still for a minute. I realized something. This was not just about my marriage anymore. This was about stopping a machine. The same machine that swallowed Michael. The same machine that tried to swallow David. The same machine that was already reaching toward someone new. Jonathan Pierce. Susan sent me a short update about him. She said Sarah had met him again. She said there were signs Sarah was trying to move into his world fast, using charity events and sympathy and the story of a cruel husband. She said she had not yet found proof of cohabitation, but she was watching. I asked Susan if we should warn him. Susan said that was tricky. It could backfire. Sarah could frame it as harassment. Robert agreed. He said the safest path was to let official investigators do what they do and let public records become searchable. That way, warnings would be clean and legal. Still, the idea bothered me. Somewhere, a man with money and pain and loneliness was being fed a story Sarah was good at telling. One night, I dreamed I was back on the stairs again. I heard Sarah laugh. I heard Marcus laugh. But this time I did not freeze. In the dream, I walked down calmly and said, I heard everything. Then I woke up. My heart was fast, but my mind was clear. I realized the dream was not about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. I was silent for years. Not silent because I was weak, but because I thought silence kept peace. Now I understood silence only keeps peace when both people respect truth. When one person lies, silence is just cover. The next day, I took a small step. I started therapy. I did not tell anyone at work. I did not make it a big thing. I just found a therapist and booked a session. In the first session, the therapist asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted to stop replaying everything in my head. I said I wanted to trust myself again. I said I wanted to become a normal person, not someone who flinches when the phone buzzes. The therapist nodded and said something simple. You lived in a situation where your reality was manipulated. The brain does not forget that quickly. Healing is learning to trust your senses again. I like that. Trust your senses. Because my senses had been right on the stairs. My senses heard the truth. My brain just needed to believe my senses again. That week, a new message came from Sarah's attorney. They requested mediation. Robert showed me the email in his office. Sarah wanted to talk. She wanted to settle remaining issues. She wanted to reduce public exposure. She wanted to reach a private understanding. Robert asked me what I wanted. I thought for a moment. I said, I want the restitution paid, and I want the truth on record. I do not care about her apology. I do not care about her explanation. Robert nodded. Then he said, I think we can use mediation as a tool. Not to soften, to secure compliance. So we agreed to mediation with strict rules. No private talks. No direct conversation without lawyers present. Everything documented. Mediation day came a week later. Sarah walked into the mediation office like she was walking into a photo shoot. Calm face. Controlled posture. Soft clothes. No jewelry that looked too expensive. But I noticed one detail. Her nails. Perfect. That tiny detail made me feel cold. Because even now, she was maintaining the image. In the mediation room, Sarah spoke. She said she was sorry. She said she made mistakes. She said she was scared. She said she never meant to hurt me. She said she still cared about me. She said she wanted peace. I did not speak. Robert spoke for me. He asked for the payment plan in writing. He asked for full disclosure. He asked for agreement not to file false complaints. He asked for agreement that all communication go through attorneys. Sarah's attorney pushed back. Robert held firm. At one point, Sarah looked at me directly and asked if I had anything to say. The mediator encouraged me gently. I felt the old part of me rise. The part that wanted to explain. The part that wanted to be understood. Then I remembered Monica's sticky note. Do not engage. So I said one sentence, calm and clear. I want the truth, and the court orders followed. Nothing else. Sarah blinked. For a moment, her mask slipped. Not fully, but enough. She did not like that sentence. Because it gave her no door into my feelings. No handle to grab. No guilt to use. The mediation ended with written commitments about payment and disclosure. No apology mattered. Only signatures mattered. When I left, I felt tired but clean. Like I did not leak energy into a black hole. Outside the building, Susan waited in her car again. She asked how it went. I told her the sentence I said. Susan smiled. She said that is how you win against manipulators. You do not fight them with emotion. You starve them of it. That night, I sat on my couch and stared at the ceiling. I thought about how strange life is. I got inheritance from a man I barely knew. I thought it would save my marriage. Instead, it saved me. Not just financially. It saved me by forcing truth into the open. And truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. 2 weeks after mediation, Sarah submitted her financial disclosure. It was not complete. It was polished and selective like everything she did. But it was enough for Robert to pull threads. Robert sent subpoenas. Banks responded. Accounts appeared that Sarah had pretended did not exist. Transfers showed patterns that matched the lies I heard in the kitchen. Robert did not get excited. He got precise. He built a timeline that the court could follow without emotion. Date, amount, source, destination, purpose claimed, purpose actual. When you show fraud like math, it stops being a story and becomes a fact. Sarah missed the first restitution deadline by 3 days. Her attorney blamed processing delays. Robert filed a motion the same day. The next morning, the payment arrived. Not because Sarah suddenly cared, because pressure worked. Susan kept watching from the edges. Not every day, not forever, just enough to see if the Chun family would escalate again. They tried. One more complaint hit my workplace. Same vague language. Same attempt to paint me as unstable. HR dismissed it quickly this time, because patterns matter, and I had proof. Then something changed. The threat stopped. Not all at once, but like a faucet turning slowly. Susan believed the district attorney investigation was getting close enough to scare them. Not because they feared truth, but because they feared consequences. A month later, the DA investigator called Robert. Robert called me immediately. He told me they were moving forward with formal interviews and evidence requests. They wanted bank records, witness statements, and Susan's reports. They also wanted to speak with Michael and David. When Robert hung up, he looked at me and said something I will never forget. This is what accountability looks like in real life. Slow, boring, and expensive. But it moves. For the first time, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Relief without fear attached to it. Not happiness yet. Just relief. The next big moment came from somewhere I did not expect. Jonathan Pierce. Susan told me he had hired his own investigator. Not because of me, not because of the court, because Sarah moved too fast and slipped. She used the same lines. She told the same money stories. She tried to shape his guilt the way she shaped mine. But Jonathan had money, and money buys out faster. He got suspicious. He checked. Susan did not contact him. We did not contact him, but public records did. The divorce order, the restitution, the judge referral, it was all there. Jonathan saw it. He ended things quietly. He did not make a scene. He just disappeared from her orbit the same way she disappeared from other men. When Susan told me, I sat with the information for a long time. I expected to feel satisfaction. I did not. I felt something softer. I felt grateful that one more person did not get pulled under. A few days later, Sarah tried one final move. She sent a letter to my apartment through a private courier. Not a text. Not a call. A physical letter, like a last performance. Robert told me not to open it alone, so I brought it to his office. We opened it with a witness again. It was not a threat. It was not a plea. It was an attempt to rewrite history. Sarah wrote that she had loved me in her own way. Sarah wrote that she was a product of her upbringing. Sarah wrote that she hoped I would forgive her someday. Sarah wrote that we both made mistakes. That last line made my hands go cold. Both made mistakes. She was still trying to split the blame. She could not admit what she did without reducing it. Because if she admitted it fully, she would have to face herself. Robert asked me if I wanted to respond. I said no, because responding is still connection. And I was done feeding any connection. Robert filed the letter as evidence of continued contact attempts. Then we moved on. Life, slowly, became normal in small pieces. I stopped checking my mirrors every 5 seconds. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. I stopped waking up with my jaw clenched. Therapy helped with that. Not because therapy erased the past, but because it taught me how to carry the past without letting it steer my future. My therapist asked me a question one day. What would it look like to trust again without becoming blind again? I thought about it for a week. Then I wrote the answer in my notes. Trust should be earned with consistency. Love should never require confusion. If the math never adds up, do not ignore it. If someone uses tears as a weapon, step back. If you feel smaller every month, is not love. If you're always apologizing for asking questions, something is wrong. Peace is not silence. Peace is safety. I kept that list. Not as bitterness. As boundaries. 6 months later, the restitution was mostly paid. Not because Sarah grew a conscience. Because the court watched her. Because Robert stayed on her. Because hiding money became more dangerous than paying. Susan's work faded into the background. The DA case continued, slow and quiet, like a machine turning. I did not get a dramatic headline. I did not get a movie ending. What I got was something better. I got my life back. 1 year after the phone call, I visited my uncle's grave. I had never visited before. I felt ashamed about that. I brought simple flowers. I stood there and told the truth out loud, even though no one could hear it but me. I said I was sorry I did not show up earlier. I said thank you for giving me a chance to start over. I said your money did not make me happy, but it saved me from being trapped. I said I will use it to build something honest. Then I left and went to breakfast alone. Not lonely, just alone. That difference mattered. On a random Tuesday, I ran into Monica after work. She asked how I was doing. I told her the truth. I said I am better. She smiled and said good. Then she said something that made me laugh. She said she expects me to stop eating peanut butter sandwiches forever. I told her I'm trying. That night, Emma called me. She asked if I still felt broken. I thought about it. I told her no. I told her I felt changed. Emma said good. Changed means you learned. Broken means you gave up. I did not give up. I learned. In the end, that was the real story. Not inheritance. Not divorce. Not court. The real story was this. A good man thought kindness meant never questioning. A good man thought love meant carrying all the weight. A good man thought silence meant peace. Then a phone rang while he folded laundry. And the truth walked into his house wearing his wife's voice. He did not destroy her with rage. He did not beg for answers. He did not break plates. He built a wall of evidence. He secured what was his. He stepped out of a lie. He chose clarity. And he learned the hardest lesson of all. Good does not mean weak. Trust does not mean blind. Kindness does not mean permission. The man who stood on the stairs and froze is gone. The man who kept folding laundry is still here. But now his hands are steady. And his life, finally, is his.